Alexa, how awesome is Shawshank Redemption?
From TalkVietnam.com. The Shawshank Redemption is consistently voted as one of the best movies of all time. Did that answer your question?
Yep.
Thanks for your feedback.
Today, the most beloved film ever made, The Shawshank Redemption, and nothing else on Cinema Unites the World. Welcome. What can I say about the most beloved film of all time? Well, first, the Bible. One thing that I am obsessed with is this concept of Saul to Paul. Just the concept for I am no biblical expert, but I like stories, as you do. Saul is the biggest psycho in the world. Right? Maybe not the biggest one, but certainly he persecuted Christians according to the Bible. But then he gets the light of God on the road to Damascus and becomes Paul. Now, in secular terms, it's not realistic, is it? Change, if it comes at all, comes from within, and it's a glacial process. It's like turning an elephant around, if you've heard that allegory before. But I do believe that with this story of Saul to Paul, it is God, if you believe in such a concept, is telling us that we can change. You believe in him and you'll be fine. I don't think it's that simple, but nonetheless, I do believe people can change ever so slowly, even though I don't know many people who have. In fact, I would say that most people don't, sadly. As Charlie Murphy once said, once you bake a cake, it's a cake. And he was talking about Michael Richards. Just saying. Certainly, I know people from the moment I met them a long time ago to today, they are the exact same person. And maybe that's just my experience, or maybe I'm right. I also know people who have changed, but for the worse. The kind of people that make me pray, "Dear Lord, forgive them, they know not what they do." Also, Lord, please keep them at least 3 time zones or more away from me. Maybe you do as well. That being said, I know people who have changed for the better, and I look up to them. We all should. I'm changing right now. I'm grateful for it. I don't know when this started for me. March 2020 probably was my biggest pivot point, but I always want to be better than I was yesterday. And to the people who do change for the better, who do change their circumstances, they're able to do so because they are humble. And they look at their current circumstances and decide that this is not okay. And that no one is coming to save them. In the hero's journey, the first stage is the zone of comfort. The protagonist, that is you, is in a moment of stasis, but you want something. You want something more. That so-called zone of comfort is really a deadly place to be, deadly to the soul. And that brings me to The Shawshank Redemption. There's a reason why it's so beloved. It's an allegory for all of us who want to change, but deep down, but like Red, we're in denial or stuck in our ways. If you were to ask Red the first time we meet him, do you want to leave this prison and be free? He'd be like, yeah, of course. That's what his mouth would say. But his heart, institutionalized. In fact, he's so institutionalized, he can say so with his words, with bitterness and emotion after Brooks dies, while being aware and somehow at the same time unaware that he is also institutionalized. In The Shawshank Redemption, the external enemies are the warden and his minions, and certainly Elmo Blanche, the man who murdered Andy's wife and her lover. But the most insidious villain, like every good story, is internal. For Red, our protagonist, the most insidious villain is his internal fear, his pessimism, his institutionalized soul. One thing that I have learned recently, and it blew my mind, was that so many of us have bad things happen to us, and all of us have bad things happen in our lives that we don't want to happen. But we can't control that. What we can do is control how we react. Tough concept to accept, but it's true. Someone a lot wiser than me once said to me, Jordan, what choices did you make that caused this to occur? And which my female friend, by the way, was telling me was after I got stalked. And I, blamed the woman who stalked me. And then I realized, wait a minute, I chose her and I ignored red flags. Aha! Andy Dufresne does not escape Shawshank until he confesses to Red. He says, I was not a good husband. I drove her away. I loved her, but I couldn't show it. And Red's like, what? You didn't pull the trigger, but that's not the point, Red. God love you, Red. You're getting there. And he'll get there, as we know. That river of S-H-I-T is the allegorical internal work that we all must do to change, to make the change that we want. Admit the problem, that no one can do it but you, and then you gotta get to work, crawling through that 5 football field tunnel to Zewaneo. The point of a confessional is, in religious terms, is it's the raw truth. There's no BS, there's no nonsense. Fred himself gets paroled finally when he has his own sort of confessional to the parole board. It's interesting to watch his three meetings with the parole board in order. He goes from lying to pessimism and I don't care anymore to honesty. Saying that young, stupid kid, I wish I could talk to him, but I can't. All that's left is what you're looking at, and I don't care anymore. And he's not telling them that he's changed. He's showing them, because he has. Modern cinema today is very divisive. Who are we kidding? It takes the audience, divides them in half, tells one half of the audience they're great, and thus feed their narcissism, and tells the other half of the audience you're terrible and feeds their rage. Stop it! Shawshank Redemption unites. That word, institutionalized. It's that internal demon is the worst. What makes this film so moving? It's the power of the allegory. That zone of comfort designed to blind us to the possibility of positive change. And what better story to tell for this than with a prison? A prison story. We're so used to doing certain things certain ways. They've worked for so long and we've survived so long doing this, but no one's coming to save us. Reminds me of another movie. Okay, another picture. The 40-Year-Old Virgin, when they take Andy, also named Andy, out to a club to flirt with the ladies, and he says, this doesn't feel right. And Romany Malco says, yeah, I know what has felt right to you your whole life isn't working. Try some wrong. Anyway, Frank Darabont apparently still gets letters from people, or used to get a lot of letters. People who would say, like, I was suicidal after my divorce, but then I watched your film and now I want to live. And letters like that, I mean, you cannot put a $sign on it. You can't put any, it's beyond. So thank you, Stephen King. Thank you, Frank Darabont. Thank you, Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman and Clancy Brown and who else? Thomas Newman. I cannot believe you don't have an Oscar yet. Beautiful music. Mark Ralston and anybody else I can remember. Terrence Marsh, the production designer. Roger Deakins, the great Roger Deakins, cinematographer. Also, if you haven't seen The Shawshank Redemption before, I just gave away the ending, but I envy you in a little bit. I'm a little jealous. But at least I got to see the picture for the first time once. And I feel bad for Stephen King and Frank Darabont and everybody who made the movie because they never got to see the movie for the first time. They knew what was coming. But there's a reason why this picture is so beloved. I think you'll agree if you haven't seen it. Recommend it. All right, so that's all there is to it today. cinemaunitestheworld@gmail.com. Check me out on Instagram, instagram.com/cinemaunitestheworld, twitter.com/JERcinema, @JERcinema, and lots of fun stuff coming up in 2023. I can't wait. But thank you all so much for stopping by, and never forget, cinema unites the world. Thank you.